So the big idea here is that this has to shift from Brook scrapping and scraping with people that live close enough to help out. This doesn't scale. So we have to minimize my work, because I'm the bottleneck right now, and so we have to boom open that up so that this can actually happen and it can scale. So lots of people wrote in and said various things. One thing was, very interestingly, I asked for workers and leaders, and it's like a split right down the middle. It's almost 50-50 split. Some people said, I'm a leader. Some said, I'm a worker, definitely a worker. And I think that some in that worker group were just people that were hoping to receive one. And I don't want to discount that, but I am going to ask, I think part of the culture that we build here is, when a kid or a school or club do receive a printer, one question that ends up kind of like being very important is, what are you going to do with your printer? So part of the culture that we want to build is for this to scale, and so part of that scaling, we're going to encourage that club to build another one, right? So pretty cool, because that's what I did. When I started in 2010, I ordered one, and I still have it somewhere, my old MakerBot cupcake. And then immediately, before I even knew what the crap I was doing, I was printing parts for another one. Why? Because it was fun. It's a really great problem to solve, and I think that one of the first things for the class to do is print spare parts, and then that leads to to build another printer. They learn the machine. When they do that, they can fix their own machines, see how they're getting skills, and then they can start to train others and gift those out to others. So we need this to work on an economic scale. And so let's talk first that, it's not really an org chart. This is like a random, sketch on a board of how the different pieces fit together. But yes, we have to have leadership. And what I'm going to be looking for in leadership, are just a few people, and they'll be the standouts. They'll be somebody that can help me form an actual nonprofit organization. When I asked my CFO, I was like, hey, Byron, why don't we just get a nonprofit? He was like, whoa, that's $1,500 just for the, no, I'm not going to just, wild idea Brook has, I have wild ideas. So we're going to have to figure out how to fundraise $1,500, and maybe we just take that out of the proceeds of how we sell these kits. But I want you to know this. It will not, this entity, besides my participation, I want this group to be completely separate from PrinterBot for a couple of reasons. One is, it's a completely different vision, right? I'm selling printers, and I'm trying to sell those at a margin that I can have a staff and pay for rent and all this. This is a nonprofit, so they're probably not going to be any formal space or offices that this occupies. This is a volunteer basis, grassroots style movement or entity. But we do need bookkeeping. So leadership is going to be a few people that have experience leading people, organizing people, maybe even marketing this, getting the message out to teachers. And I think there will have to be, a budget. I hate the money stuff, so I don't want any involvement in that. There will have to be, you have to think through, well, do we want to go to a show and set up a booth? Do we want to get where teachers are gathering? How do we get information out to teachers? Maybe there needs to be a website. Now, all that stuff's pretty cheap. Shows are not cheap. Like conferences, they're ridiculous. So I would say it's just, online, sharing stuff on social media first. But we want to get the word out, because if this is going to grow, we need customers or participants. So anyway, I'm looking for just a few. Now, I'm going to vet those, and I'm going to ask primarily, help us start an organization. Now, by the way, just because PrinterBot is my company and I'm leading it, all are welcome, right? I'm not going to keep anybody out. This is an all-inclusive thing. And there can be other people from other companies on the board if we want. But really, we just need the right people in the right seats. So we want leaders that have experience leading. Now, I know there's a lot of willing people, but this is a pretty large group of people. Half of them, 70-some people say I'm a leader. And I've already read some that were like, wow, yes, you have experience. One guy led 14,000 people in his last job. He's retired. So I need help doing that so that we don't waste time. We use a little bit of time and have a big impact. So that leadership is really where it's going to start. And I'm going to reach out. I said I was going to do this week, but I didn't do it. I need to find those quickly. So I'm going to reach out. I'm going to give myself a couple of weeks because in a couple of weeks we'll have shipped, I think 2 or 3 weeks, 3 weeks. Phase 3, the deadline is, this will begin, formally, my goal was ship Phase 2 by the end of the month. So September 1 is the relative start of, it's September, October, November. Anyway, so it's September 1st. So we want to get organized by that date. It takes time to get a nonprofit and all that, so that's leadership. Now, the next thing that, thinking through all of these, like, oh, gosh, we're shipping stuff here, there, and everywhere, I want to simplify that as much as possible. And I think it's a very, very good idea to have people that are interested in logistics. And basically, what this role would be, and I want you to start thinking about what role, where do you fit? Because 155 people that are excited about a vision, that's great, but that number's going to get smaller when you realize there's real work to do here. And logistics is a very important one. So what does that entail? Well, it could be, basically it's a it could be bookkeeping, it could be shipping things, it could be organizing where the bots need to go and who is close, what builder is closest to that school, so that we can minimize the cost of shipping. If that's not, I guess in the U.S. it's pretty cheap to ship anywhere, but logistics is just somebody that doesn't have to actually get goods into their hands. They don't have to have a warehouse to store stuff because we're going to split the work amongst a lot of people. But logistics is just somebody that will organized person that is good with spreadsheets, organization. So I'll leave that pretty vague. But it doesn't mean you have to know how to print. It doesn't mean you have to have a printer. By the way, neither of these roles have really anything to do with 3D printing. They have to do with leadership and organization. And if you don't build your nonprofit or company on that base, you need to. So there's that. All right, now, so I got this one, get that. Now, the fun part for me is printing. So we are going to need people that just print. Now, it doesn't mean that, and this is 3D print, by the way, but that doesn't mean that, what was I going to say? Oh, that doesn't mean that you don't build, because some people will 3D print and build. Now, Phase 2 involves both. That's one person. But I think that there's definitely going to be some people that they don't want to really build this stuff. They already have a print farm. They love printing, and they just want to ship these parts to people. So that will be, we'll have to figure out how to get filament to them, or if they provide their own, we'll have to figure out how that works. I don't know. This is high level. So there's definitely 3D print. And then there will be builders. Now, I think the builders are also the people that are supporting. And I think they will need, parenthetically, they will need to be printers. But they don't have to print the parts for this. Because the truth, I think the truth, is there'll be people that just want to build. And maybe at another time we'll break this support off to somebody else. They're an expert, but they don't want to have to build. They don't want to have to print. But right now we need people that build these things to support, because you need to know how to troubleshoot and fix this thing. And ideally, you would need to have a printer. So this is going to be a lot of our community right here. Some people may not want to build because, frankly, by the way, just because you can 3D print does not mean you can build. Can I get an amen, Dave? Yeah, he's like, yeah. All right. But we need these special folks that have a multifacet. Now, by the way, let me talk about supporting. This is another thing. I've tens of thousands of people have bought our products, and so we've communicated with tens of thousands of people. And 3D printing people are a unique breed. Typically, they're technologically savvy, or they're just smart people. And 3D printing is that problem, but it's always got nuances based on what printer you have. You know, some guys are Delta guys. Some guys are Cartesian. Some guys just want to invent crazy printers. So they're more into the mechanics. So sometimes there's this niche that they have, but 3D printing gets them there for that payoff. But I don't want to say this. I want to choose my words carefully. Not all 3D printers, and by the way, it's true of leaders, people that 3D print, builders, people that offer support, people that do logistics. The superpower here, like I've been saying, is people. So I'm really looking for people that step into a classroom that can teach, or at least can support to train somebody. You need to be a people person, and not all people involved here are people persons, if you know what I mean. You have to be good at talking to people, and I'll just leave it at that. There's probably a bunch of jokes that I could make, but at my own expense. But you really, really do need to understand that there will be, when we go into schools in particular, there's security concerns. There's, it's somewhat political in that environment. There's tight constraints around the type of person that they want to interface with these kids. So, we may find out that we have to figure out a way to vet builders, a way to vet printers. Are the prints that you're providing, do they look good? But the same is true of support and training people. We need to know that you're good with people and that you can communicate an idea and that you can at least show up on time and all that kind of stuff. So it gets complicated. But anyway, this one, there'll be people that build too. So the next part, these are a couple of, this may have some overlap, but probably, I'm going to erase that. Probably we'll keep these separate for now, because I'm just going through the major parts of the printer. Electronics. I can't spell. Electronics. And down here's wiring. Wiring is kind of cool because it's an opportunity to kit up a little wiring pack. Right now I have a lot of wire that wrong length, needs crimps. So a lot of electronics guys have those materials, but this electronics, in my case, I have some that need refurbished. But I would bet that there's a lot of 3D printer boards out there that could be refurbished. I'm not limiting this to just PrinterBot stuff. I'll talk about that in a second. But there can be a guy that just does electronics, and if you're doing electronics, that's all you need to do, because it's very time-consuming, and it's very, very hard. And so if you're one of those special guys that can do electronics, troubleshooting, and reworking, that should be your only job. But wiring, basically anybody can do this. The amount of storage you need and the equipment you need for that is wire cutters, wire strippers, and a crimper. So it's very low barrier to entry. But it is something that we will need. Now, someday we might just order some of this stuff from China, but in my experience, when you order from China, you have to buy a huge amount of bulk, and the quality can be low. So I order wire from, American providers, manufacturers, and cutting and crimping. Now, I have equipment here, so maybe this wiring guy could be somebody in my local community, and I could let him use my machines. There's probably other places that have wiring machines, but that saves tons of money, and it's a real need. Okay, so these are the various ones. We've got wiring, electronics, printing, building. Oh, and I do think that down the road, recycling. Man, I said 10 or 15 minutes. I was wrong. What time is it? 5:10. I would love someday to have people that have a superpower. They can take plastic, recycle it, grind it up, and extrude it. Now, I got a Kickstarter. Let's see. I've built a Lyman, I think that's how you say it, extruder, and I know others have too. That's a home-built model. So here's, if you've always wanted to build those and you want to get into recycling filament or making your own filament, we need people that recycle filament. Now, AdoptABot is a friend of mine, the guy that owns, Tyler, that owns that company. He's a friend of mine, and he has the longest running product that allows you, you can just buy it, use pellets, and make filament. But the reason I think this is cool is, number one, it's responsible, you know, earth-friendly, but we have so much plastic in this world. I think we need to make recycling a priority in this program so that, for instance, it's so funny to me that we ship filament on plastic rolls, and then we throw that plastic away. So maybe we all ship our spools, because God knows there's a lot of spools out there that find their way to the trash. If we can recycle these, now that's ABS. Who wants to print ABS? Recycling is one thing down the road, but right now we won't do that. But I bought a. I haven't used a AdoptABot, but I've seen them in person. I know those work great. I know that there's another. I forget the name of the Reedy Tech or something like this. There was, I forget what it's called, Protocycler, I think. I just got one of those the other day, and I gave it to Carl Ubis because it needed a firmware update or something. So he's trying to get that going. Let me tell you, it's a very nice piece of equipment. You could buy it directly from them and be a recycler, that or AdoptABot, or make your own Lyman. But that is something that I think schools would be interested in because it lowers the cost of running your printer. So that's another kind of superpower in the ecosystem that we're building here. And then it basically gets down to, again, I'm just using schools as representative schools, and this is where the need is. So maybe that's another club or homeschool group or whoever it is. But so all of these people combine to build a community that get a printer to schools, support those schools, and help share the wealth of the knowledge that we've learned in doing what we're doing. So, again, this isn't a PrinterBot system. This is one other thing I wanted to add. This is something that other manufacturers could join in on. This could be logistics. Could take, or at least arrange for a printer to be donated. It could go to a builder. It could go to somebody that is, let's say MakerBot wants to donate, or somebody with a MakerBot wants to donate, but they don't want to refurb, they don't want to mess with it. They need to send it to an expert on MakerBots. Maybe there's Ultimaker. Already there's somebody that's donated or offered to donate an Ultimaker. So I'm agnostic on, I don't care what kind of printer you got. If you have one laying around, we should, through our logistics, figure out where does that need to go. We need a good match. You know, we got to match these people up that are going to troubleshoot, refurb, and get this thing running, and then we can get it to a school. So I see this as people donating print time, build time, donating printers, donating just the time of refurbishing a printer. So it's all inclusive. It can be any organization, and of course we'll take donations once we get as a legal entity and we have a bank account. But the cool thing about that is then Intel or whoever could donate money, and then we could turn that into printers for schools. So it lowers the barrier to entry for schools by lowering the price, by lowering the fear, because I want one, but I need somebody to help support me. Is there anybody that could help support? The other thing I want to mention too is I've been careful with what I've said about this. It's all been for fun, but we're getting serious here. There are what's called VARs, value-added resellers. And so I have some VARs. In fact, Chris, who came last week, donated his time free and clear, didn't ask for any return favors or anything. But I wanted him to know before he left, I said, listen, your business is a print service and design services. And I actually think that those businesses should be making themselves known by getting involved with education, especially the ones that target education. But those people out there that think, oh, Brook's going to kill my business. That's not it at all. This, by the way, does eat into my market a little bit. But it's the leaders that understand that, China has already, no offense to China, but, the low-cost printers that have been made available thanks to the cheap labor in China and all of that, that's eaten into my business. But it's those leaders that are willing to actually, kind of a harsh word, but cannibalize their own products. Like me moving forward is saying, okay, the race to the bottom has already been won by China, but the quality is low, the support is zero or near zero, and the payoff is bad. This is a way for a school to get something low cost with a huge payoff because you got people and a community to call on involved. So that, I think, is really the difference. We didn't need cheaper printers. I mean, that makes it easier for some people to get involved, but schools don't need cheaper printers. They need knowledge. They need help. They need people. They need curriculum. So if you're somebody that has a business that does reach schools, please don't feel threatened by this. We want you to fit in to where it makes sense for you. And of course, we're not going to, as far as I know, we're not offering paid services. I don't want to be a service company. I don't want to necessarily write curriculum with this. That's a whole different thing, and there's experts that do that, and they should keep doing it. We could gather resources and present them online, but this is really about matching up the people to the schools, and we're people with printers. So that's the focus. All right, so the pitch is over, but here's the one main thing that I am absolutely sure of, and I'm just going to, it's going to be an edict. And here's what it is. I talked to a guy, and it's price, by the way, and I don't want to make anybody nervous, but $40 doesn't cover it. And I don't even want to take the $40 beyond this $50 that I'm doing. So we're not going to, phase 3 doesn't start taking money until there's a nonprofit and a bank account out there somewhere managed by someone else other than me. Then the money can go to them, and we can manage it. But the price has to be more than $40, and here's why. When something is free, some people associate a value. If it's no dollars to me, it's unfortunately sometimes no value. So the value is zero if it's $40. So I just think we need to bump that up a little bit to $99, and that's what that acts as like a gate, as like a wall to get over. Like $40 is easy. It's like, taking my family out for McDonald's, or maybe not McDonald's, maybe In-N-Out and ice cream. But anyway, $40 is just too little. If we're going to pay for shipping, and that's included in this not we, but this entity, I think $99 is the price of entry. Now, I'm not asking necessarily for schools to pay that money. But here's what's happening with me. There are some people, I just know it, that got in on this $40 because, they were a kid looking to, maybe they're just clever, and they listen to me, and so they're like, hey, I can get a printer for $40. Well, this $99 is a little bit more, so it's going to keep some people out if they're not serious. But it also provides a little bit of room so that if a school, the school down here, they don't have any of these people close to them. They have an expert in their class, and they're willing to put together a kit. But $99 is doable to just pay for the cost of a really small, cheap printer. Now, I talked to a guy that has done sourcing. We all have done it, gotten on AliExpress or Amazon or whatever. And he really opened my eyes because, like, the smalls, I think the smalls cost me, if I were to have to buy everything new, it would be over $250. But I have a lot of parts that I can reuse from, a big pile and stuff, and so it's just enough. We make, oh gosh, if we make 20% on the smalls, I'm shocked. So that product won't be around forever because it's, doesn't scale. But it's been a lot of fun. That's the model we're going to launch this with because small is cheap. But the guy I was talking to, he said, I've priced the FrankenBot that I designed. If you remember, I did he's a student and a teacher, collaborated on kind of a revamp of my old Kickstarter Plus. And he's got the bomb of the of the Frankenbot, or essentially an old Plus, with a heat bed, Chinese E3D knockoff, ramps 1.4, just everything was the cheapest possible. But at quantity of 1, he got it down to $125 cost. Now, that might even have included shipping. Now, $99 isn't that. So understand that $99, there's no margin. Unless the person printing and building is essentially free. So I believe $99 is the next tier that we need to move to say, hey, even if you're a school that's willing to put it together, that's willing to do it yourself, that it would be okay if a school just ordered one. And it's outside of this support ecosystem that I'm trying to build. Hopefully someone will emerge. But I believe that that's kind of the point, that a teacher might actually spend their own money. And this happens. Teachers spend their own money and they buy something that they know and they're familiar with, and they take it into their classroom. So I think $99 is a very low bar. It's just the next kind of tier. And we may find out that I'm wrong. It needs to be $125, but maybe it needs to be $75. I don't know. But we need a little pad in there to make sure that this can happen and it does scale, and I'm not just writing checks to make it happen. Okay? So that's the big pitch. It's for education. It's for kids. It's a little bit beyond that, but it's really to engage the community, you guys, that you have skills. And it's not okay to keep those skills to yourself. You need to share those skills, because 3D printing is really, and design, especially design, these for a kid can be life-changing. And to open their eyes to what is possible. America needs this. America needs people to step up, grassroots, and get involved in their schools and start to invest in not just tomorrow's workers, but some of these guys are today's workers. So I'm passionate about this. We're going to take it to phase 3 beginning September 1st. Now that doesn't mean we kick off and you can buy September 1st. I'm saying let's get past phase 2. Let's get these 50 out. So check the website. Tomorrow at 5 PST, we'll see how it goes, if we even have 50 takers for AdoptABot. Builders, printers, and willing to support. And that's the pitch.